When I first saw Thirsty Suitors come up on the Xbox Game Pass list, I was kind of confused as to what this game was initially. The trailers didn't really show too much about the game other than that it seemed to be like a dating simulator or something like that. And a lot of these dating sim games kind of turn off most people from trying them out. There was one a few years ago that did end up getting on my top 10 list that year. But that, they don't usually show up too often in my recommended or in my circle of video games. But being a video game connoisseur and playing many different genres, I always try and branch out. Just earlier this year, I was playing Goodbye Volcano High, which is a narrative adventure with rhythm game elements, and that was pretty good. And I decided, you know what? Since I took a chance on Goodbye Volcano High, why not just take a chance on Thirsty Suitors? Who knows? Maybe it'll be a at least interesting time. But don't let the odd presentation or the idea of several people thirsting over your character. Don't let that put you off to this game because it's actually quite a good game at its core, and it definitely it definitely shines in places that I was not expecting. One of those places is the writing. I felt like this game had a very strong narrative to it, had some pretty funny moments. The whole basis of this game is going back to your hometown. This girl Jala, she went and moved away from the town after leaving behind a wave of destruction. She just kind of picked up and left. She called her then girlfriend at the time that they were breaking up, and she was moving away from a payphone. Um, so yeah. So she's coming back to this town to make amends with the people that she hurt, like her parents, her sister, and a group of individuals who are her exes. So this game is kind of like the opposite of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, where Scott Pilgrim obviously had to fight his girlfriend's exes himself, but in this game you are Ramona Flowers, or Jala in this case, and you have to fight your own exes and make up with your own exes. And the first one you meet is like this dancer dude. He's macho and he expects Jala to be like a stay-at-home mom or whatever. And it was like love at first sight back in like third grade and blah 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 blah. And right away, the game presents itself in a very fun and loose way. The fighting in this game, you have these different taunts that you can do in order to put status effects on the character that you're fighting, the person that you're fighting. So if you do a thirsty taunt, you can put the thirsty, the thirsty. I just said the word and it's slipping my mind. The thirsty effect on them. And what that means is that moves that you have, skill moves that you have that do thirsty damage will do extra damage to them. Or there's a shock one, there's a rage one, there's a heartbroken one, there's a impressed one. And all of them have their own moves associated with them that do extra damage when those status effects are put onto them. Of course, you have a willpower meter, which is pretty much just like a stamina meter. Each skill and each taunt takes a certain amount of willpower to do, and you need to do basic attacks or use consumables to get your willpower back. There are some moves in your skills list that summon another character from the game, usually after you defeat a X, or not really defeat them, but make up with an X. They can help you out in a fight by either doing some extra damage, putting status effects on them, random status effects on them. There's one that heals Jala herself and gives her more willpower. There's one that just your mother comes out and hits the suitor with her flip flop or whatever it's called. So and yeah, it's kind of like a fun, loose kind of game for a while. But it does get a bit more intense down the road. Probably around like chapter 5 or so is when the game started to be more serious, a more serious tone with it. Jala was getting to the more intense parts of her broken relationships. So that's kind of when things started to get a bit more serious and the dialogue stopped being funny and it started to be more like hard hitting, you know. And even though, I mean, this game obviously covers a lot of ground, it covers everything from family issues to um, generational gaps, uh, cults. There's this guy dressed up as a mascot who is coercing kids to come to a skate park, and I don't even actually know what he does there, but he's trying to like become a political activist and take over the town essentially, and he's trying to get the kids to be on his side, right? So you're dealing with that. There's like LGBTQ stuff in here, of course. That's one of the main themes of this is the different stories that these X's have. Each one of them kind of represents a different side of the LGBTQ coin. Obviously, the first suitor that I was talking about, the first X, he's a straight man. So that kind of starts the game off at that base level, and then it builds from there. The next suitor is this girl who came out to her mother, and she was shunned from her family and she doesn't talk to them anymore. So, you know, obviously that's a pretty hard hitting storyline, pretty hard hitting story beat. The next one is this guy who like talks to his cat or something like that. But he's very shy. It's stuff like that. Continuing on, there's a guy who's from South Africa. He comes to America and he discovers that he's bisexual or pansexual, I think is what he said. I apologize. He said he's pansexual. So he's unsure if he should tell his family back in his home country and stuff like that. So there's a lot of interesting and hard hitting topics in this game, all culminating to the generational gap thing that I was talking about, where your grandma comes from India, and you know it's an overwhelming presence, an overwhelming force. She has expectations for both her daughter and for her grandchildren and stuff like that. So the whole like final part of the game is based around trying to get her to understand like, hey, times are changing, things are changing. We're sorry for what happened to you and what you had to go through, but we don't have to go through that stuff anymore, right? So yeah, I think that there is a storyline for kind of everyone in here, almost. You know, Jala herself is she's the bisexual one. She's dated both men, women. Um, she's had a long-term relationship that's been on and off with one of her friends named Tyler, who transitioned in out of high school. So yeah, there's like a story for everyone in this game, which is really nice. You know, unlike something like I don't remember what the game was called that I played back in the day and put it on my top 10 list. Maybe it was top 15 that year. But that one was more so like a straightforward, like, you're a woman and you are trying to date these random strangers and it's a roguelite. It's like, okay, there really wasn't much going on other than the fact that you were using these people as weapons, and you were dating your weapons and stuff like that. And that was like the main hook of it. It was really fun, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as deep or hard hitting as the stuff that happens in Thirsty Suitors. Obviously, there was a point where the game kind of plateaued a little bit with the characters they were introducing. There was too many of a certain, like, a similar style character in a row. But you know, it once it goes past that plateau, it goes back up to being a more interesting tale. The one place where I think this game could improve a little bit is the skateboarding. Essentially, in these two open areas you can skateboard around, do tricks and manuals and stuff like that. There's also challenges for you to do on your skateboard given to you by the mascot guy I was talking about before. And I do wish that the skateboarding wasn't so stiff. It's not like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, okay? And I don't think they were going for that. But the skateboarding it totes the line of being too basic and being maybe a little bit too ambitious at times. I would say. I feel like if the skateboarding just felt a little bit more loosey goosey and it didn't feel so stiff, I feel like I would be okay with it being maybe a bit more basic. But they tried to add in like these special moves and stuff like that, which aren't too difficult to pull off because all you have to do is press RT or R2 on a PS4 controller, and boom, bada bing, you're doing your special move. But that's the thing, like, it's maybe a little bit too basic, but it's also like, why even add this in here if it really doesn't matter in the long run, right? Why make such an easy way to get your special ability or something like that? So yeah, the skateboarding is kind of the one area that I really wish was either flesh it out a little bit more or bring it back a little bit. Maybe even allow the player themselves to decide if they want to skate around the area, because as it stands, you can't just switch to on foot kind of stuff, which is kind of annoying to me because by the end of the game I was like, I really don't want to skate through this area. I've been grinding on the same rails. I've been doing the same tricks to get to my objectives. I just want to run there and not deal with any of the bullshit. But by the time that the game was over, I was just kind of over the idea of skating everywhere, because it wasn't that satisfying to skate. For how integrated it is into the main game, in the open world areas or open areas, they're pretty small, all things considered. But you would think that they would either put a little bit more time into it or maybe allow you to not skate if you don't want to. I feel like that would have been the better solution there, because at its core, it's fine. The challenges are kind of fun to do, giving you different objectives like getting all the collectibles in one combo or getting the highest combo you can, and there's a few other things as well in there. So yeah. So you can actually get random encounters in this game, but they're always in the same places. So like there's a little gift that shows up or the head of the mascot, to fight a potential suitor sent in by your grandma in one area, or in the other area you are fighting skate punks. You can just grind for XP if you need to. I never felt the need to grind even all the way up to the end of the game. Like I was just doing the major battles and then maybe a few small ones here or there just when I was feeling like it. So you don't have to do the grinding to raise levels. I mean, the combat encounters for the main story aren't that difficult, all things considered, compared to other turn-based games. This one definitely does not have the challenge that a lot of other ones have. Yeah, that's the end of the sentence. I don't know why I'm trying to continue that one. So, yeah, in the turn-based areas, in the turn-based sections, it's not too difficult. I think there was only one time that I got knocked out, and I was supposed to get knocked out. So, that kind of tells you like, yeah, it's not too bad. It's not that difficult. It definitely is more of a story-based adventure than a combat-based or an action-based adventure. And that's kind of what this game has going for it over something like Goodbye Volcano High, where that was a very, it was a very narrative straight kind of game with a couple of sections in there that were, a little bit rhythm-based. Whereas Thirsty Suitors, I mean, the gameplay, the combat is integral. It's integral to the gameplay experience. So that's why Thirsty Suitors kind of gets the step over Goodbye Volcano High in both combat and in story. I feel like the story in Goodbye Volcano High, it's still good, don't get me wrong, but it's very one note at times, where it's like it's only these characters and it's only this. And even though I like the representation in Goodbye Volcano High, I feel like Thirsty Suitors does it a step better in how it does it. And I don't think it's a competition. I don't think it's a competition on any level. But if you're choosing between the two for a good LGBTQ kind of game, I would definitely recommend Thirsty Suitors over Goodbye Volcano High right now. Not only because there's more gameplay and more things to do in Thirsty Suitors, but I think the story is put together in a better way. There's a little bit more representation, a little bit better representation in that game over the other one. Plus, I think the art style and the graphic style in Thirsty Suitors is really fun. It can be a little bit off-putting at times, but I think that kind of raises the game up a little bit, because it is kind of like a weird, awkward art style where some of the character animations are a bit stiff while other ones are kind of loosey-goosey. I think it's a nice little it's a nice art style and a nice graphical style. That kind of gives it that it leans into like that more fun kind of goofy element that the game is going for. On top of that, there are sections where you cook in the game, which started out pretty fun, stayed fun. Don't get me wrong, but it turned into kind of this like doing the same things over and over again. So there's quick time events for doing the different cooking tasks like stirring and frying and lighting things and washing your hands even, and those things are really fun at the beginning, and you're doing them and they're gonna in the recipes are getting more involved, and you're doing them with your mom and your dad. When your mom's there, you're kind of talking about more serious things. When your dad's there, he's more of like a loosey goosey goofy kind of guy. And the cooking stuff never really got more challenging. They just kind of stayed a stagnant level of like, okay, I know what I need to do here. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. The thing that makes the cooking more interesting is the fact that you have heat levels, and the more heat peppers you have, there's like 6 or 7 on your screen that you can acquire. The more you can compliment your mom or dad, which will give you a boost or a negative on a little spinning wheel, which is kind of fun. You can also do super mixes and super whatever. Whatever you're doing, you can do a super version of it, which gives you more approval by your parents. And the more approval you have, the more likely your dish is going to be good and they're going to enjoy it. And it also will net you either more of that item in your inventory, or there'll be a little bit stronger versions of what you already did if you get 3 stars. It's out of 3 stars. So if you royally fuck up and you don't get any stars, or 1 star, I guess you could say, then that item's not going to be as strong. You're not going to get the you have to redo it because they're not going to like it. You also get like this fun animation sometimes when they eat something that's like incredibly memorable to the parents. Like your dad imagines him and and your mom meeting for the first time. It's a nice little animation. But usually they just kind of do like this quick animation where like the dad's like all silly and goofy and wiggly, and the mom's like remembering her time in India. So yeah, there's some fun stuff in there with the cooking. But like I said, it does stagnate after a while because it really is like the same 3 or 4. No, I guess I would say the same like 5 or 6 steps, just in different orders or multiple times. And I was hoping for more variety in that kind of thing. I was hoping for them to incorporate more cooking techniques into the game so it wasn't just cut and wash and light fire and stir and mix and fry, and that was kind of it. So it's still fun, don't get me wrong, but it's one of those things that by the time I got to the last one, I was kind of burnt out on it. So there you go. So all in all, I enjoyed the game. I would definitely recommend the game. I think that it's a fun turn-based kind of combat style kind of game. I think the story's pretty good in it. I think the skating is the only thing that really was a downer for me, like a real down. Um, Along with some of the aspects of the game that kind of plateaued a little bit. The story did plateau for a second. The cooking did definitely plateaued because it wasn't as involved as I was hoping it would be. And obviously, I'm not expecting like Cooking Mama level types of cooking recipes, but I still would like. I still would like to have a little bit more variety in there, so I'm not just doing the same thing multiple times for these recipes. But yeah, I liked the character interactions. I like the message that's in this game. I like the story overall. So in the end, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. It's a recommend from me. Obviously, it's not gonna be for everyone. I understand that not everyone wants to play a turn-based strategy game. Not everyone wants to have a story with so much representation, I guess, which is kind of weird to say out loud, but that's just the facts. Um, but yeah. I know there's going to be people who maybe try this game out on Xbox Game Pass because they have it, and they're like fans of traditional shooters, or they're fans of other genres, and they're going to be like, oh, this is cringe or whatever. And I try and not be closed minded when I go into games like this, or any game in general. So if you can't see the world from another person's perspective, like this game tries to do or does pretty well, then it's definitely not going to be the type of game for you. If you don't want to see the world through the eyes of someone who is a different gender, a different nationality, a different origin, a different sexuality, then yeah, turn away from this game, because you're just gonna not like it. Maybe based on several reasons. I don't know. I'm not going to go into specifics right now because this is just a review. But once again, I enjoyed it, and I think that most people who pick it up will at least enjoy the fun art style. The combat's pretty fun and unique in terms of like taunting people and then using skills to really harp on those taunts. And the overall story is pretty good. So there you go. That is the final review for Thirsty Suitors. Thanks for listening.